My name is Katie Basin, and I am the Director of Academics for Football at the University of Colorado. Yes, I consent to being interviewed and recorded. Between academics and football, so I spend as much time with the football staff as I do with the Herbst academic staff. My job is to make sure student athletes stay academically eligible and that they have all of the support academically that they need to be successful in school. Every day with a football staff meeting and then a football team meeting. Then I usually come to my office, work directly with professors, emailing them or talking to them on the phone, looking at student schedules, thinking about how I can help with tutors or things like that. I then always go to football practice for a little while, down on the field, make announcements at practice, and then the whole afternoon is spent directly working with students, whether it's helping with their homework, reading their papers, helping them understand what they have due or what's coming up. My coworkers are split between the Herbst Academic Center and the University of Colorado football staff. So for the Herbst Academic Center, there are other people in my position who work with other sports. So for example, Mindy Sclero works with the lacrosse team, and Corey Harbor works with the basketball team. There's two guys who work also with football like I do. That's Chris Howlett and Medford Moore. And so we as an academic unit each work with a specific sport. And then my other coworkers would be the Colorado football staff. And in terms of how the activities that men and women do, within the academic center, I would say the activities are very similar. The males who work in the academic department all do the same thing that the women do. For example, I help students with their homework. There are other males in our department who help students with their homework. Our jobs aren't really aligned on a gender scale. Whereas on the football staff, it's pretty different. I don't coach football, but the football coaches all coach. The football coaches probably aren't as likely to ask a student what they're struggling with emotionally as I am. So I would say that on the football side, as a female, I'm more of a nurturer. I make sure our students are doing okay emotionally and that if they're struggling, they have someone to talk to. Before I came to the University of Colorado, I worked at San Jose State with a different group of coaches. And I was pretty new at the time, and I was walking through the office, and one of our coaches saw me, and he said, "Hey, aren't you supposed to make the coffee?" And I looked at him and said, "I'm happy to make the coffee, but no, that is not my job." Being the only woman on an all-male football staff is definitely an interesting experience. It's had a lot of impact on my life for sure, and it's really changed the way I think about things. I think both positively and negatively. One example is when I first started doing this, before I was around men all the time, I used to hold my emotions in, and I wasn't very good at being confrontational. And through working with men, I've really learned to say what I'm thinking, say what I'm feeling, and move on. Communicating with the Herbst Academic Center staff that's more diverse in gender, I would say is very, very different. In football's a masculine sport, and there's a lot of emphasis on being strong and tough and direct and all of these things. I find myself when I'm communicating with football coaches or football players, I change the way I talk a little bit to suit them. For example, if I'm on the football field and I need people to do something, I'm more likely to raise my voice. I'm more likely to speak very closely to a student because that's what is typical or normal on the football field. I'm more comfortable being direct with football coaches. If I'm mad at them, then I say, "Hey, you did this, I need you to do it this way." And I'm okay with that in the football setting because in order to be taken seriously, I often feel like I have to kind of elevate the way I speak in terms of approaching them in a way that they're used to. Whereas with the academic side, I have to be a little more careful. I have to be more diplomatic. I have to be more aware and cognizant of people's diversity and their situations, and I find myself almost being like a chameleon. The football staff and I are extremely close. We work a lot of hours, and we work very, very closely. Herbst Academic Center, most people work 9 to 5. Our offices are kind of spread out. People don't work as closely together. The football staff is a little more comfortable being direct with each other, maybe being a little more aggressive, like I said before. But in terms of the way I get treated, the football staff jokes around with me a lot. I get made fun of a lot, picked on a lot, but it's all out of love. If someone outside our circle was to hurt me or give me a hard time, I would be the most protected person in the world. They wouldn't let anything happen to me. With the Herbst Academic Center, it's much more of a traditional workplace. I think that people support each other, but we don't work so closely that we really are comfortable giving each other a hard time or kind of being playful with each other in a way that is that you see when people are very, very close. It's a much more formal environment. We need more male teachers. Teaching is a profession that's been traditionally female throughout our history, and I think that young men in elementary, middle, high school would do much better if they had more male teachers. Should a woman be a defensive line coach? Probably not. I don't think that the players would respond very well to that and that they would take it very seriously. So I think that there are some areas where gender plays a role in how the people being led are guided. And I think that specifically in a sport like football, can and should women be a part of it? Sure. Can they be analysts? Can they get involved and help coach in some ways? Absolutely. I think I have a strong preference. I think that everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses, and I don't think those always follow a gender line. I think that there are men who can be very empathetic and thoughtful and caring and nurturing, and I think that there are women who can be assertive and firm. I don't think that has to stay on those lines. But in terms of how I feel in terms of working for someone, it has more to do with how that person treats the people who work for them rather than whether they're male or female.